Welcome to Rent Wars. This week we will be addressing the Ebola scare with more information on this rapidly developing story. We also will be discussing the Airbnb situation regarding the illegal hotels and the new activity on that front. In addition, we will be talking about Attorney General Schneiderman versus Donald Trump. And lastly, just in time for Halloween, we'll be talking about the unkillable zombie back from the dead. That's right, we're talking about the infamous Tenant Blacklist. Since our show aired on Thursday, some of our predictions came true between the taping of the show and the airing of the show. Two nurses from Dallas have become sick, both of them young nurses. At the same time, a doctor at Columbia University is on TV telling us the Ebola virus is hard to catch. Be afraid, be very afraid. They are so concerned about keeping us calm that they're not concerned about keeping us safe. Last week, I suggested that we have Hollywood take over the response that was only halfway tongue in cheek. President Obama has gone one further. He's appointed a political operative with no medical experience to be the Ebola czar. One has to wonder if he figured instead of Hollywood, let's use some real imaginative people to address this crisis. And by that I mean political operatives. Two nurses have become sick with this quote unquote hard to catch disease. Nina Pham and Amber Joy Vincent. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. And meanwhile, one of the main crises that the new Ebola czar has dealt with in the past was helping Joe Biden prepare for a debate. Be afraid, be very afraid. The Center for Disease Control insists that the situation is under control. My question is, controlled by whom? Now, in all fairness to the Ebola czar, the man is a very intelligent political operative who is a lawyer who has clerked at the U.S. Supreme Court and is no doubt very intelligent. Alas, President Obama trained at the same law school, and he seems fairly clueless. Oh, I long for the good old days when we could make fun of blundering Republicans and their top dog posing in front of a mission accomplished sign. Instead, we have to worry that our so-called intelligent leadership will bungle this Ebola crisis so badly that people will remember the Katrina hurricane response as a high point in disaster response. Politically correct pandemic control leaves much to be desired. As if it's not enough that the government has bungled this, Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Ebola family have surfaced looking to capitalize on the spread of Ebola. Now, he would like us to believe that the hospital's incompetent and racist. That's easy enough. The hospital sure seems incompetent. But what about the culpability of Thomas Eric Dean and his family? Now, Mr. Thomas Eric Duncan, I'm sorry. Mr. Duncan came to this country aware that he was bringing a deadly disease, or that he would had a high probability of bringing a deadly disease. It is a fascinating coincidence that no one in his family succumbed to the Ebola disease. Clearly, he came to the country under false pretenses. He hid his prior exposure to the disease from screeners before boarding the plane to the United States. You can understand his desperation to get here and hope for a cure. It also appears highly probable that his family was aware that he had Ebola prior to his coming here. Mr. Duncan presented himself to the hospital the first time in hopes that modern medicine would detect his Ebola virus on his own. That would mean that he was aware that he could spread the disease to other people in the Dallas area. So here we have someone who's aware they're sick, they're aware they have a contagious disease, and they're going to a public hospital's emergency room, knowing that they could spread it to everyone in that room and to the staff and to other people, and knowing what the disease is, but not telling people, hey, I have this deadly disease. Now, he didn't care about that. What he cares about is he's afraid if he helped them make their diagnosis, that people would become aware that he lied to get into this country, fully aware that he was probably carrying Ebola. He was probably afraid that his deceit would be exposed, and instead of being treated to America's magical medical marvels, he would be deported and sent home, ejected from the country, and ejected from the medical care. So when they first diagnosed him and didn't die, when they first saw him at the hospital and didn't catch that he had Ebola, that's why he's not telling them. He's trying to give them hints so they'll think Ebola, but he doesn't want to come out and say, okay, get me into that Ebola ward so that I can live. So when he comes back the next time in worse condition, he helped prod the hospital along a little better because now it's getting more serious. So instead of using them as the goal of modern medicine, he was subjected to the all too common bungling of reality medicine. Yet and still, he and his family expected that he would be treated like the aid workers who openly and honestly informed the government while they were in Africa that they had Ebola and traveled to the United States in special anti-contagion airplanes. Are these people on crack? Why would they think that a guy who snuck in and hid his disease would be treated the same as people who are aid workers, so that they were out there doing good deeds, who went out of their way to avoid contaminating anyone, and who were fully and absolutely cooperative. They left this country to go help people in Africa. They went there, they caught a disease. They told everyone, I caught this deadly disease. What can we do? And they made arrangements. These people, on the other hand, snuck in. And so not only did Mr. Duncan know he had Ebola, but his family probably knew he had Ebola as well. You'll notice none of them are sick with Ebola, only the nurses. So if he has these serious symptoms and diarrhea and all this stuff, and he's being treated at home by people without protective gear, it's awfully odd that they would not have been exposed to this, and that no one who had interactions with him has caught it, who's a member of his close family. So yes, it's pretty clear they knew he had Ebola, and it's pretty clear that they didn't mind sending him out there to infect other people. Now, this is a family willing to share Ebola with the rest of the United States, has the nerve to try and financially gain from their misconduct. As I mentioned last week, the community that they will share Ebola with was the African American community. The racism here is the willingness to keep the community exposed. Reverend Jackson knows this. The Ebola family should be arrested, not awarded money. So why is he there? What's in it for him? What's he doing encouraging this outrageous behavior that endangers an entire African American neighborhood? He's probably hoping to get some of that financial gain for himself, because he sure as hell is not concerned about the pandemic dangers to the black community. Maybe he's just so desperate for attention after Sharpton has taken the lead in Ferguson and everywhere else, they'll help anyone who can get a national TV camera to show up. This Ebola situation is very serious, and this is not the common cold or even the common flu. This is Ebola, and very few people survive being infected with Ebola. This is one of the biggest dangers uh, really facing us. Um, Not just Ebola, but in general, um, diseases, infectious diseases, and pandemics are sort of cresting. We have all of these viruses and bacteria, actually bacteria that are immune to uh, uh, antibiotics. We have all of these diseases that are sort of cropping up, again and again. And this particular one is a particularly nasty disease. It's particularly fast acting and easy to spread. And we have someone on TV saying it's hard to get Ebola. Well, I'm sure all the people who have it, who are suffering from the pandemic and who died from the pandemic, are probably thrilled to hear how hard Ebola is to catch. There's all these people in Africa who have it, who died from it, and to hear something that absurd, I'm sure, is uh, not appreciated. Now we turn to AirBNB, the apartment sharing website, with the slick new ad campaigns claiming that they stand for regular New Yorkers. Well, they do not. Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has found that most of the apartments listed on AirBNB are illegal. That means there's no friendly senior citizen living in the apartment hoping to make ends meet. Nothing at all like the ad campaign that they've plastered throughout our subway uh, and plastered around our neighborhoods. Instead, Attorney General Schneiderman, using the data that he got from his subpoenas, has found that there is a network of illicit underground hotels that are eroding the residential fabric of our city's neighborhoods, ruining that fabric permanently. And that's just what he was able to get from them. At the same time, Mayor de Blasio's administration has filed its first lawsuit against some of these AirBNB illegal hotels. Now, this is an interesting sort of confluence, but apparently de Blasio has some of Schneiderman's information here. This is excellent work by both Schneiderman and de Blasio. Strangely enough, some of the AirBNB illegal hotels have apparently sued AirBNB. Their claim is that AirBNB violated their rights by giving the Attorney General's office information about their illegal operations. Now, good luck with that argument. Now, it may work if you know you pay off Chief Judge Katzman, Second Circuit, and he has his little people assign the case to his hand-picked cronies. But that is an absurd argument on its face. For one thing, AirBNB is really in danger of being found liable for racketeering. They know these people are fraudulent. They know or should know when people have multiple listings. I mean, you can't live in your own home at 50 different places. So bravo to State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and to Mayor de Blasio for taking these actions despite the friendly-looking campaign, super slick campaign by AirBNB. This is one of the real fronts for the fight to protect affordable housing. If they can take affordable housing and turn it into illegal hotels, that means people who live, work, and try to survive here and raise families here can't do so because they're competing with tourists who are only staying for a couple of days and pay through the nose at very high rates. It makes it absolutely impossible when people are paying $400 a night, and you multiply that by 30 days, and you'll see that no family working a regular job could ever afford to compete with what the tourists are paying. And that on top of that, with the landlords of these illegal hotels, they have this tremendous incentive to chase out the people who are there. You also have, if even if you own your own co-op or your own condo, you have people coming in and out. You have no idea who they are and where they are. And Airbnb recently had this massive scandal where prostitutes were using, were renting the apartment simply to meet with their Johns, and there were sex parties and damage done to the apartments, things like that. This is recent. This is within the last 6 months, within the last maybe 10 months as well. Um, and here they are trying to say, well, this is wonderful because of this illusion that it's a couple of old ladies renting out their spare room. This is no joke. They have killed affordable housing. You can't compete when a tourist can come and pay $400 a night, $200 a night, even $100 a night. When you multiply that, it's it's not going to happen. You multiply that by 30 days, and you see that the average person, the average family cannot compete. So on top of that, we have plenty of real hotels around here, and they pay their real hotel taxes, and they handle themselves like hotels. They keep everything in check. It's known that it's temporary housing. That's what tourists need. And to have tourists sneaking into people's homes, into people's neighborhoods, into people's buildings, it's not a good thing. It's destructive to the community. It's destructive to the neighborhoods. And it allows the landlords to get away with pushing people out, families out, and tenants out. So bravo again to Schneiderman and de Blasio. This is one of the real fronts. This is like ground zero, because there's a lot of money here. There's a lot to be fought. The people you're going up against have money. It's the real estate industry, like the dirty underbelly of it. So this action alone will help free up some apartments for real people where they can live. So affordable housing is under attack. It's been under attack for over a decade, probably over 2 decades. And this latest internet gambit on attacking affordable housing is coming at tenants with lots of money. It's bringing a highly financed publicity campaign directly to bear against housing, and it's great to see public officials do something about it. Also this week in the news, Attorney General Schneiderman versus Donald Trump. Attorney General Schneiderman's lawsuit against the Donald Trump's Trump University claiming fraud has prevailed. The court found Trump liable for running an unlicensed university. However, that doesn't stop Donald Trump from declaring himself victorious. So both Schneiderman's office and Donald Trump's office have declared themselves victorious in this action. One thing that's definitely clear is Donald Trump has access to resources so that he can get licensing if he needs it. So it's amazing that despite having having the resources to get this licensing, they would do it without it. Just the the arrogance of it. If nothing else, Schneiderman has prevailed in showing the sort of stupid, I mean, just petty arrogance. So once again, bravo to Schneiderman, because you can't have promise people certain services and certain quality of teaching and then not provide what you promised. And lastly, just in time for Halloween, back from the dead like an unkillable zombie, the New York Times reports on the Tenant Blacklist. Despite actions taken by the court and by the legislature, changing the way data was given to these large credit reporting companies that create tenant reports or tenant blacklists, the New York Times has found that these companies have found a way around the restrictions. Since they can no longer buy data on all these court actions on disk from the court, they're pulling up new eviction data and case data at the housing court at the court itself. They have someone sitting at the computer terminal writing down each and every case's information, or typing rather. So at this one terminal, a lady is sitting there all day writing down everybody's data so it can be put on this tenant blacklist, on this giant database. While this slows the blacklist down a little, it does not provide the protections that the court system and legislature were trying to achieve. But the solution is simple, and I don't know why they haven't instituted this anyway. Limit the time on the computer that one person can spend to 10 minutes per, or 10 minutes per 2-hour period. Now, for the average person, this won't really affect them. And if you make it 15 minutes, it wouldn't really affect them. But it would stop this data dumping. This would give legitimate users the ability to look up their cases on file, but it would prevent these blacklists from camping out at the machine morning till night, ruining people's ability to find housing. And usually their reports are unfair and inaccurate, with information that confuses actions for repairs, where the landlord's not providing repairs, with actions for lack of payment. So this is a serious issue. You have people listed that shouldn't be listed. You have people who say, hey, the landlord didn't give me heat, and suddenly they're on a tenant blacklist. The entire premise of these lists is specious anyway, because it assumes that the very filing of one of these cases equates with guilt. So the court really needs to take this action, set a time limit that a person can sit at that computer, and let's see this tenant blacklist stake through the heart once and for all, cut into zombie pieces and spread with bleach. That's all for this week. Thank you for watching Rent Wars.
Be impromptu. All right, our next category is the Be Informed Award, for that show that works to bring you news and information that you might not find elsewhere.
And the honorees for the 2014 Be Informed Award are...
All right, the Be Free First Amendment Award is given for work that has advanced or strengthened the notion of free speech in the community. This could be outside work or programs that have pushed the limits of free speech in a way that creates more room for other producers in a very positive way.
The First Amendment is the first of our rights. It is the one upon which all of the other rights depend. It protects all of the other rights. The right to believe what we do, to associate with whom we choose, and to share what we think with others. Indeed, this is the very definition of community. In this way, we understand our work to be the most American of duties. It is for this reason that we honor community producers who have worked to exercise that right in a way that promotes speech and dialogue. They broaden our horizons and help us to tolerate and understand one another. Our honorees for the Be Free First Amendment Award are and the winner, Kevin for Rent Wars. And I want to say this is actually one of my favorite awards, and I really appreciate Kevin coming out. It's fun, that he wears a mask, and that he's used an avatar on his program, but it points out something, that it's not always easy to exercise your free speech, and it's not always without a risk. So we appreciate all that everybody does, and we appreciate Kevin's show too.
Check out Rent Wars episodes online. Go to our website, www.rentwars.com, or to our YouTube channel that's on youtube.com, and you can pick up episodes of Rent Wars. All of our most recent episodes are up there. Our new episodes are going to be up there going forward, and our old episode library from our past 10 years, that which wasn't destroyed by corrupt federal judges, that is, will be put up there piece by piece as well over time. So check out rentwars.com and see episodes of Rent Wars and share episodes of Rent Wars with your friends who aren't fortunate enough to have cable television.